The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network. It's time for Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. We'll talk all things Hokie wrestling with Coach Tony Robie and staff. Now, let's join your host, Hall of Fame wrestling writer and broadcaster, Jason Bryant.
Episode 86 of Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling, getting ready for another school year. We've had a little bit of time off this summer. Coach Robie, welcome back to the program. It's been a busy offseason for Virginia Tech Wrestling.
Yeah, it has been. It's good to talk to you again. It's been a while. But yeah, things are good around here. School started yesterday, so we've got everybody back on campus after about 4 weeks on their own and 5 weeks of training in July. But excited to have everybody back, and all the students are back. So, parking's an issue now, and it's kind of back to normal.
It seems, as I recall my time in Blacksburg, parking was also an issue, as was the issue with said company that shall remain nameless, and how they made their money on Virginia Tech students and visitors. But that's neither here nor there. One thing that's no longer a visitor, it's your latest staff member, Cody Brewer. He was the last guest on the show. And the last month and a half, 2 months, how's Cody been adjusting to Blacksburg and the staff?
Yeah, it's been great. Cody kind of, was really able to dig in with our athletes and in more of a coaching capacity in July when we kind of had everybody here working camps and training with our RTC. So he was able to spend a lot of time and put his hands on a lot of guys, especially our little guys. So I think it was really good. I think the guys on the team, are acclimating to Cody and kind of his style and his system and technically what he brings to the table. But I'm very pleased with kind of what Cody brings. He's in here working with guys 2 or 3 times a day, putting his hands on guys and really kind of getting in the weeds and the wrestling part of it, which is going to be his primary role to help some of these young guys develop and get better, and not only young guys but really everybody on our team, and that's he's embraced that role. And he's got a lot of passion and he's got a lot of fire, and he's not afraid to get on our guys if they're not doing what he expects them to do, which I really like, and I think is going to be an asset to us. So I think in addition to that, him and his now wife Rachel, they just got married on Saturday, have adjusted really well to living in Blacksburg and are pretty happy here. And so yeah, all things are great. He's actually on his way back from Roanoke right now. Tucker, our director of operations, was picking him up at the airport and bringing him back after about a week in the state of Washington, where him and his wife Rachel got married, and they're going to do a quick honeymoon and then get back to work here and start focusing on the season.
I'm thinking the great honeymoon spot would be maybe this little secluded spot in Grundy. What do you think about that? A honeymoon in Grundy?
Yeah, I was in Grundy yesterday. So
I had no idea about that. That was not a loaded question, by the way. I had no idea about that.
I was. So, but I don't know. I don't know if that would be Cody's cup of tea. Maybe it would be. But good people down there in Grundy. I can promise you that much.
Truth be told, I have never actually been to Grundy.
Is that right?
Yeah. Well, then again, in some days the Pocosin guy's not supposed to go to Grundy, but that's they're in different divisions now. They're friends now.
It's a long ways from that part of the state. I mean, they're way down in the southwest corner. I mean, it's about 2.5 hours from Blacksburg to get to Grundy, and it's you got to hit some pretty windy roads, so it takes some effort to get there for sure.
I think the math was I could have, in 2016 when the NCAAs were in New York City, I could have driven from my parents' house in Pocosin to Madison Square Garden and gotten there before I could have driven from my parents' house and gotten to Grundy. It's that far away from.
It's a ways away.
From,
it's a ways away.
The beach,
sure.
as everybody calls it.
Long state. So
now we're kind of bearing the lead here a little bit. One of the biggest news items that come out of Virginia Tech this offseason was the announcement that Mekhi Lewis, the program's first NCAA wrestling champion, will be taking the Olympic red shirt. And for those who are unsure about how the process works and what things have to go through, an athlete has to go through to qualify for an Olympic red shirt and then to be eligible to take it. It's not like a regular red shirt. So just take us through what Makai's got to do here with this season and maybe some of the decision that led up to it.
Well, the NCAA allows what they call an activities waiver for athletes who qualify for the what they call an Olympic waiver, Olympic red shirt, and that qualification is set by USA Wrestling, the governing body for freestyle wrestling and Team USA. So Makai meets that qualification by winning the NCAAs. I also think by winning the Junior World Championships. So it allows Makai to take a year off of competition and kind of freeze his eligibility or his 5-year clock is what they refer to it as, and take this year, not take classes, focus entirely on his development in freestyle wrestling, focus entirely on qualifying for the Olympic team trials, and then, an opportunity to make the Olympic team by winning the trials in April in the State College. So as a staff, and obviously Makai was included in this decision and the dialogue that we had leading up to making this decision. But, I think that after taking a little bit of time off after the season from competition, which I think was the right thing to do with Makai in terms of just giving him a little bit of a mental break and a little bit of a physical break, but more of a mental break after winning the Junior Worlds and then after winning the NCAAs and the short turnaround between the NCAAs and then the U.S. Open and then ultimately the trials. I think Makai really started to get the itch to take advantage of this opportunity. And for us as a staff, we just felt like Makai's development since he's been here has really been, pretty spectacular in the 2 years that he's been at Virginia Tech, and giving him an opportunity to really just focus on freestyle and improving in his development just made a lot of sense in the big scheme of things, in the long-term picture, and basically what's best for Makai and then also what's best for us. And there's a lot of things that factored into the decision, and, the Olympics come around once every 4 years, so you never know where you're going to be or what's going to happen 4 years from now when he has another opportunity to do it. So I just think if you have a guy that you think has a legitimate chance of making that team and qualifying for the Olympics, it's a hard thing to deny somebody. And overall, like I said, I think it'll be big scheme, big picture down the road. We'll be glad we made this decision. Obviously, short term, not having a guy like Makai in your lineup is going to affect the results. There's no question about that. But it's also going to allow David McFadden an opportunity to go back down to 165, a weight class where he's a lot more comfortable at, and I think that he has a lot more confidence in himself at. So that's kind of what the plan is. And that there was a lot of things and a lot of discussion and a lot of thought that we put into this decision, but those are kind of the Cliff Notes version of where we were at and what the thought process was.
David also has a different milestone on the horizon. He is you can't really put the cart before the horse, but he is in a good spot to become the first 4-time All-American in school history. And as important as Makai Lewis's national championship was, how important is it to produce 4-time All-Americans at the Division I level for Hokie wrestling?
I think it's obviously just another milestone for a program, like you mentioned. When you're recruiting elite kids out of high school, they want to be 4-time All-Americans, they want to be national champions, they want to be world champions. So it's just another thing that we can sell in the recruiting process, and I think it's going to be pretty cool for Dave just because of we've had some pretty good guys that have come through here over the course of the last decade or so that weren't able to accomplish that feat. Guys like Devin Carter and Nick Bracetta and Jared Hott and Ty Walls, and we've had some very good guys that weren't 4-time All-Americans. So for Dave to hopefully be the first, I think it's going to be something special for him. But I do know this much: I don't think David McFadden's going to be satisfied just being and a 4-time All-American. And I can tell you that he's very, very excited about his last season here at Virginia Tech and his opportunity to go out and compete in an effort to win a national title and follow up with what Mekhi did last year. I think just seeing that and being a part of it and being as close to it as David was in terms of, being with Mekhi all summer when they were training for, the World Championships, Dave, the U23, and then Mekhi, the Junior World Championships, and they're obviously training partners and very, very good friends as well. I think that's, took Dave's kind of fire to another level, and I do think that he's excited about the opportunity to go back down to 165, and I think it's going to force him to be more disciplined with what he does outside of the room, with his nutrition and all of those things, because it's going to be obviously a tougher weight cut for him. It's going to be tougher for him to get down to weight and maintain that weight. It's very doable, but I think it's going to force discipline upon Dave that is really going to help him long term. So, and for us, that played a part in our decision. I mean, Dave's been a big part of our program, a big part of our success. He was he was on the team in 2016 as a true freshman when we took fourth at the NCAAs, and he placed as a true freshman. So, he's done a lot of great things for Virginia Tech wrestling, and hopefully he can cap his career with a national championship. I know anything short of that would be disappointing for him.
One thing about the Mekhi Lewis situation in terms of his national championship, and I realize NCAA rules prohibit discussion of any recruit that hasn't signed a letter of intent, but it's got to seem to me that as soon as Mekhi wins that, the recruiting had to just amp up in the spring and summer. I mean, how much did Mekhi's championship really change the amount of phone calls that you were receiving and getting returned, I guess, from these recruits?
Yeah, I think we were doing pretty well recruiting, to be quite honest with you, even before that happened. But obviously, it helps. I think where we're going to see that is even in the future. Mekhi won in March, and most of the kids that we were recruiting in that 2020 class, we'd already had 3 commitments at that point. We have received 1 additional commitment since then. But we had been recruiting a lot of those kids and had those relationships with those kids since September of last year. So we were well into the recruiting process, where I think we're going to see it help us is even down the road and in the future. We were just able to start recruiting 2021 kids in August. So getting in the door with those kids and talking to those kids, it's something that they're all really, really excited about. And I think it's like I've said this before, it was definitely, as a program and as a staff, it was something that we needed to do. I mean, kids need to know that they can win national titles, and when your program's never done that, it's an easy thing to recruit against to a certain degree. So we knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of time, and we felt strongly. I mean, I've said it for a long time. Since the day Mekhi showed up on campus, I felt like he was going to be, if he wasn't the first, he was going to be a guy to do it pretty quick, and obviously that happened. So, yeah, it's definitely helped in all areas of the program.
One thing is, we get into late August, early September, colleges are now announcing their schedules. Of course, one schedule that's very near and dear to the Hokie faithful is the college football schedule. Of course, the kickoff against Boston College coming up this weekend, and then the home opener on the 7th against some school in Norfolk that I know pretty well. But that schedule is out there. Hokie Nation's getting really happy, and of course, throughout the course of the fall, Hokie Wrestling is going to have events that are around home football games. But anything you can tease us about what may be coming up for tailgates and things of that nature before home football games at Lane Stadium this year?
Yeah, so we're going to do, we are doing a practice, weather permitting, in the Hokie Village, which people that have been to football games know what that is. We do an outdoor practice. It's on the lacrosse practice field right across the street from Lane Stadium. So we're going to do a practice there before the ODU game that morning, and that's going to be open for fans to come out and watch some of our guys train a little bit. And then the following weekend when we wrestle Furman, we've got a big weekend planned for both the Southeast Regional Training Center and Virginia Tech Wrestling fans. We have our second annual Southeast Regional Training Center golf outing on Friday, September 13th at Auburn Hills. If you're looking for information on that, if you just go to southeastrtc.com, scroll to the bottom of the page, you can click on the golf outing link, get all that information. Or if you're looking to support that event, which we can always use sponsorships in the form of whole sponsors. We've got all kinds of sponsorships. We even have a title sponsor this year. If you really want to step up and commit to the Southeast Regional Training Center, but that's going to be a great time. And then the following day, we follow that up with on the 14th, we'll have an open Southeast Regional Training Center practice that morning. We're going to have a Virginia Tech fan appreciation tailgate for the second consecutive year. That'll be right across the street from Castle Coliseum in front of Dietrich Dining Hall, and then obviously the football game as well. So that's something we're really looking forward to. It was a big success for us last year, both of those events, the golf outing, and then especially the fan appreciation tailgate, which is just more or less us thanking fans of both Virginia Tech Wrestling and the Southeast Regional Training Center and people who support our program. It gives them an opportunity to come out and hang out with our coaches, and some of our athletes will be there and spend some time and allow us to give back to them a little bit for all the support they've given us. So those are two big weekends that we have going on in September.
Now we've got an email address for questions for the show at InsideVTWrestling@gmail.com. So that is also at InsideVirginiaTechWrestling.com. Click that email link. So InsideVTWrestling@gmail.com. And a lot of the questions we had that we trotted out are centering around the Southeast Regional Training Center. So that's a great segue on your part, Coach Robie, not even scripted. And we'll just start out right now. Kevin in Richmond asks, can you tell us about the history of the Southeast RTC, what led to its creation, and what makes it a great training center?
Well, the whole landscape of, they used to be just wrestling clubs for a long time, and when Coach Stresser was the head coach here years ago, we started the Hokie Mat Club and changed names maybe once or twice, but basically what it was a club that allowed high school athletes within 50 miles of Blacksburg to come and train at Virginia Tech, or, be a part of our club. And it also, acted as a 501c3 that you were able to donate to and get tax deductions for, and a lot of those funds went towards paying our volunteer coach and helping supplement salaries of our coaching staff and those kind of things. And I guess it was probably, about 5 years ago or so now, the NCAA and USA Wrestling created these regional training centers, and now they've gotten really, really popular to the point where pretty much every major Division I wrestling program in the country has a regional training center. And the regional training center, the Southeast Regional Training Center, really originally was put into place to create opportunities for guys like Ty Walls to train in Blacksburg and be a part of a training center, and allow them the opportunity to live a somewhat comfortable life where they can afford to live, and they get paid fairly well, and go on and compete and train and hopefully make an Olympic team, win an Olympic gold medal. So, that's part of what the Southeast Regional Training Center does. That's a big part of it. We'll do the same thing for athletes graduating for Virginia Tech in the future, David McFadden, hopefully Makai Lewis and all these guys. And kind of what we try to do is we're trying to build our training center with Virginia Tech guys, and we have a lot of guys in the program right now that we feel like are going to have aspirations after college. But in addition to that, the Southeast Regional Training Center also allows high school kids who qualify for the regional training center, and some of the qualifications are you have to live within 250 miles as the crow flies, you have to be top 4 in the state, you have to have a USA Wrestling card, that they can come in and they can participate at Southeast Regional Training Center workouts. And it gives them an opportunity, to develop and be around high-level coaching and high-level training partners and help them prepare for events and hopefully prepare them to get to the next level. So those are two of the things that it does, and it also, again, serves as a mechanism for us to keep guys like Ryan Blease in town and Ty Walls, and it helps, we have coaches that are on our staff that are also coaching the Southeast Regional Training Center that we supplement their salaries with their salary from the Southeast Regional Training Center. So it's really a necessity, and it's getting to the point where, there's schools that are raising upwards of $500,000 to, even more dollars a year for their Southeast Regional Training Center, and they've got 5 or 6 or 7 athletes that are on campus competing and training alongside of the athletes in the wrestling program at those particular schools. So that's kind of what the vision of the training centers was, and I think you've seen with the results of USA Wrestling how effective this model has been with the results of the United States, at the cadet level, the junior level, and at the senior level as well. It's been a very, very successful endeavor that USA Wrestling and kind of the NCAA have created for schools and for training centers and for athletes.
Jake asks, do you plan on adding any new Southeast Regional Training Center athletes in the future?
Absolutely. I don't know if it's going to happen this year. Likely will not. But absolutely in the future, and like I mentioned earlier, we absolutely want to be able to keep our guys around that are loyal to Virginia Tech, and guys like Jared Hott, who I didn't even mention, who's also our volunteer coach, but is a coach of the Southeast Regional Training Center. Those funds and those dollars allow us to keep Jared in town here and be a part of our program and a part of the Southeast Regional Training Center. But yeah, we want to build it, and we want to continue to bring elite level athletes in that are Olympic hopefuls and guys that are that we can help them fulfill their goals of making the Olympic team, and then in turn they're also helping us serving as great mentors and workout partners for the other athletes in the training center.
Question in regards to donations. So what's the difference between donating to the Hokie Club and donating to the Southeast Regional Training Center? How do people get the most bang for their buck?
That's a great question, and it's somewhat confusing. It's a question that I get a lot, and basically the Southeast Regional Training Center has zero affiliation with Virginia Tech Athletics or with the Hokie Club. So, what I always tell people is that that's a matter of their personal preference. If somebody gives to the Hokie Club in earmarks, and this is the important part, is they earmark those donations towards wrestling. Those funds are really important to us as well, because those go into helping us supplement our operating budget and, buying extra stuff, doing things that are just regular operating budget maybe doesn't allow us to do. But all of those funds that go towards the Hokie Club, those are spent on operational expenses for Virginia Tech Wrestling, travel, meals for our athletes, summer school dollars, all kinds of things like that are also really important to our program as well. And, we've been pretty successful in raising funds in the Hokie Club and then also in the Southeast Regional Training Center, but it's definitely a balance. I mean, the dollars really kind of go towards different things and help our program in different ways.
Chris in Virginia Beach asking, with Mekhi Lewis taking an Olympic red shirt this season, how will donating to the Southeast Regional Training Center impact his training?
Well, NCAA rules do allow us to, we can't really pay Mekhi, but we can pay for some of his expenses. through the, with the training center. Donations cannot be earmarked for Mackay Lewis to the Southeast Regional Training Center, but the NCAA rules do allow us to pay some of Mackay's what they call actual and necessary expenses in his competition and his training, and being able to supplement, some of his expenses or necessities, rent and food and things like that. But those dollars are going to be there regardless. And like I said, but it does add some expense to kind of what we had budgeted for the year.
So if there's a donation to the Southeastern Regional Training Center, where's the money go first? I guess is the question. Is it going right to staffing? Is it going right to
it primarily goes towards staffing? Yes, Jared Hott, Ty Walls, Ryan Blease. Like I said, even paying our Coach Frey or Coach Brewer to help coach that entity and coach the Southeast Regional Training Center. So that is where the majority of the dollars for the Southeast Regional Training Center go, and they also go towards creating opportunities in terms of sending guys to the Olympic Training Center and sending guys to different events and training and competition expenses for the U.S. Open, for the World Team Trials, and those kind of opportunities for both Southeast RTC athletes and then, Virginia Tech guys that are competing on the freestyle scene in the summertime.
Now we go from one divisive topic, because that was a big point at the NWCA convention, was the oversight of the RTCs, now to another, which is kind of the arms race in college wrestling. It's not just football anymore. We're seeing big facilities and locker rooms and all sorts of stuff. So Jason in Abingdon asks, he's curious to know that with Ohio State's new massive wrestling facility, will this put pressure on your program and other top Division I programs to possibly go in this direction with large facilities of this nature to be able to compete, or do you feel you can be just as successful with the current facility, and are there any plans to expand? Best wishes on an upcoming season.
Well, I hope it puts pressure on us. I think it absolutely will. If you look at facilities across the board, across the country, Rutgers is just moving in the process of moving into a completely renovated space. It's, spectacular. I've seen some video of it. Locker room, coaches' offices, wrestling room, recovery room, lounges. Nebraska, what Minnesota has right now is, they have, their training facility is incredible. It's 6 mats. It's really, really well done, first class. I've just seen pictures of it, haven't been there in person, but and then obviously with what Ohio State just did, and then a lot of other schools as well have really made huge upgrades to what they have facility-wise. So I think just like in any other industry or any other athletic sports, it's an arms race to a certain degree. So I think it's definitely been a discussion point, over here in Virginia Tech Wrestling and with some of our administrators, and we are getting ready to do some upgrades with our locker room and with our space leading into our wrestling room, probably after the season this year, and doing, a fairly significant upgrade in those areas. But I think ultimately what we're going to need is space is, probably going to become a little bit of an issue for us, and just hopefully trying to find a way to increase what we have. It's I think with any coach and any program, it's something that you're always thinking about and trying to game plan for. And we're certainly in the process of game planning for that and putting some stuff together and hopefully we'll see where it goes. Ultimately, those aren't decisions that I'm going to make, but hopefully we have some people out there that if we do get to that point, will support us at a financial level as well, because that's ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what it's going to come down to. I think what Ohio State put together was $42 million with it's got wrestling and volleyball, if I'm not mistaken, but there's a competition facility. They've got 80 yards of wrestling mat. It's 5 50 by 50 wrestling mats. So it's just an enormous facility. We wrestle up there this year, so looking forward to getting up there and seeing that thing in person.
Man, you're doing a great job at tying the schedule thing back to it, saying you wrestle up there this year. So we go into our couple schedule questions. First, Landon asks, are there going to be more duels held at the Moss Arts Center? know we've had one in the past couple seasons, but we're curious if you were going to expect more than one. It says it's a fantastic arena, but you can't beat the history of Castle. Have a great one.
Yeah, we are going to stick to one match at the Moss Arts Center, at least this year. We will wrestle Duke on February 7th. At the Moss Arts Center. It'll be our last home dual meet of the season, probably a 5, 6, or 7 o'clock start, I would assume. But, so, we love wrestling at the Moss Arts Center. It's not always the easiest venue for us to book just because there's a lot of other events over there, and it requires, if they have a Friday night event and we're on Saturday, it requires a lot of tear down and then set up for our event. So logistically, it's a little bit more difficult for us to do, and it's a little bit more difficult for us to get that facility. So we'll do one match over there this year, but it's something that we plan on doing for the foreseeable future for sure.
Now, we know we've got the opponents set. That's been released on the website, but do we know when the full schedule is expected to be released? And I guess this is my question. Does the conference itself, how much oversight do they have when it comes to, the schedules of non-revenue sports?
Well, so all of our ACC dual meets are scheduled by the ACC. So they give us we can schedule on our own anytime between Friday and Sunday of that particular weekend, but they tell us what weekend we're wrestling, which ACC teams. It's the last 5 weekends of the regular season. So we have a little bit of say in terms of when we wrestle. I do think that's going to change a little bit too with the ACC network and having opportunities to be on the linear network. And they're, from what I understand, the ACC network is going to say, hey, these are the days that we want to air wrestling matches, whether it's a Sunday or a Thursday or Friday, Saturday. We don't know yet. But I think if you schedule on those particular days, the odds and the chances of you being on the linear network increase. So that will probably have some say in the schedule. But those are the only thing the ACC dictates for us. The rest of the schedule we put together entirely on our own, and work with other coaches and other athletic departments in terms of those dates. So. The only requirements that we have are you can't go beyond 16 dates, and sometimes it's a little bit confusing, but you can have a couple of competitions that are 2-day competitions that only count as one date. But that's kind of the way it works. But our schedule this year is going to be for Hokie fans. If you're going to be around in November, it's going to be a great month to watch Hokie wrestling, and we're going to have to make sure we're ready. We open up, and we don't have all the times set exactly yet, but I can divulge some of this. On Saturday, November 2nd, we will wrestle Missouri at home, and then the following day will be the Southeast Open, formerly the Hokie Open. We're going back to the Southeast Open, and that'll be on Sunday, November 3rd in Roanoke. And then the following Sunday, we wrestle Northwestern at home. And then the Sunday after that, November 17th, we are at Ohio State. So those first 3 weekends of the season are going to be, we're going to have to be on our game.
And again, if wrestling fans are wondering where they can check out a big, massive, collective college wrestling schedule, go to collegewrestlingscoreboard.com. That's something I've put together through Mat Talk Online. That is a free resource, so Hokie Nation, by all means, check it out. It's got Division I, Division II, Division III, all the junior colleges, you name it. I mean, we got junior colleges in Virginia now. We got a new program right up the road in Richlands with Southwest Virginia Community College entering the college wrestling fray here in Virginia. Also, of note that the last question we have, and this is an important one, probably the most important question ever asked on Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. This goes to both me and you, and the question comes from John, and it asks, when you go to Salem for the state wrestling tournament, what's the best meal at Mac and Bob's, and why is it the Calzone?
I've only been to Mac and Bob's once, so I'm probably not the right guy to ask. You could probably answer that question a lot better than me.
Even though the last time I was at Mac and Bob's was 2009, but the correct answer was still the Calzone. Now, I did have a former Hokie on my Short Time show not that long ago. Her husband may or may not be the head coach at Northern Iowa and a former Virginia Tech softball player, and she also did speak highly of the Mac and Bob's Calzone. So Allison Schwab does also answer that question in lieu of Coach Robie. I allow her to answer on your behalf, but I'm going to agree with that, even though it's been 10 years since I've been there. 10 years since I've been to Mac and Bob's. That's crazy.
Yeah, you got to get back, man. That's too long.
Yeah, I was actually 30. Yeah, because I was in my 30s the last time I was in Mac and Bob's. I was almost close to doing it at the Division IIIs in Roanoke, but we just couldn't get out there. I was trying to tell Andy Hamilton this is where we got to go, and it just didn't happen. You're
on the keto diet now, though, right? So you don't even eat carbs.
I haven't really had pasta. I don't know how. It's not really a keto. It's just I don't know. I'm hitting the Minnesota State Fair when we get done with this call today. I've got to see Weird Al Yankovic live tonight, so that's I'm gonna be putting the dietary stuff on hiatus, and I'm probably going to have a deep fried something.
Good for you, man.
And again, as we get back on our actual show thing and not talking about my eating habits and Weird Al, if you have a question for the show, every episode we're going to be checking it inside VTWrestling@gmail.com. Scheduling, Southeast Regional Training Center information, questions for athletes and coaches, questions for me, questions for the network, you name it. We'll do our best to answer all of them inside VTWrestling@gmail.com. So, Coach Robie, final words as we head into kickoff this week with Boston College.
Yeah, we're just excited. It's that time of year again. We had a little bit of time off in August, which was nice for guys to recharge and get ready to go. But we're excited for another big year of Virginia Tech wrestling. Hopefully, Hokie fans, Hokie faithful, and everybody's fired up, and they're going to come out and continue to support us at a really high level. I mean, I just think it's really important that we have a lot of people showing up in Castle Coliseum to support us. And last year was as good a year as we've ever had. It was probably the best year we've ever had attendance-wise. We had 4,000 people in Castle to watch wrestling on 3 different occasions, 4,000 or more. So that's a big deal in Blacksburg, and trust me, I've been here for a long time, so I know what it was like a long time ago. So we appreciate the support of all our fans and all of our donors and everybody that cares deeply about Virginia Tech wrestling, and we can promise you that we're working really hard on our end to continue to bring in high-caliber athletes and to keep this thing humming.
Hokie fans, listen to Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling anywhere you go by subscribing on Apple Podcasts. Go to InsideVirginiaTechWrestling.com/iTunes, or you can get the exclusive Android or iOS apps by going to InsideVirginiaTechWrestling.com.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.